When Jennette McCurdy discovered her family's dark secret, it turned her world upside down. She knew they were hiding something from her, and once she discovered the truth, there was no going back. We'll get more into that later. From the very beginning, Jennette's upbringing was nothing short of a nightmare. She grew up in a poor Mormon family with her parents, grandparents, and 3 siblings. While many people come from dysfunctional families, hers was next level. Her narcissistic mother Deborah was the root of it all. As a child, Jennette's favorite place was the church, but it was for a chilling reason. She hated being at home. Her mother had a hoarding problem and filled almost every inch of the house with garbage. This meant that Jennette and her siblings couldn't even use their beds. Instead, they slept on mats in the living room. On top of their house of horrors, the McCurdy family barely made rent every month. But that was all about to change. You see, Jennette's mother harbored failed dreams of becoming an actress, so she decided to live vicariously through her daughter by pushing her into acting. But this decision would tear the girl's life apart. Even after one of her earliest auditions, Jennette already knew that she hated acting, but when it came to her mother's selfishness, this was only the tip of the iceberg. In her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, Jennette remembered the screaming matches and physical altercations between her parents. But there was an even more disturbing side to it all. Deborah desperately wanted to keep her from growing up and went to extreme lengths. Even at the age of 8, she still had her mother helping her in the bathroom, wiping her behind and showering her, and this lack of boundaries persisted over the years and went to horrifying lengths. Throughout Jennette's childhood, her mother was on a mission to make her a star. In order to get her represented by the best acting agent, she pushed her into acting classes that she despised with every fiber of her being. Of course, Deborah micromanaged the whole time, and when it came to preparing her daughter for any role, she had no qualms with working Jennette to the bone. If she had a comedy audition, her mother would ply her with Red Bulls so that she would have comedy energy. For every shortcoming Jennette had, her mother bounded forward with the perfect solution. She had always been preoccupied with Jennette's physical appearance, but the acting escapades took it to a whole new level. When an agency said that Jennette's homely looks couldn't get her an audition for Because of Winn-Dixie, Deborah had an over-the-top reaction and broke down crying. According to Jennette, this was the first time that she wished she was prettier, which would have been devastating for her self-esteem. One day, while she was on the way to an audition for Without a Trace, Jennette had a feeling that the tears simply would not come. At this point, she worked up the courage to tell her mother the truth. She did not want to act. Dreading her upcoming audition, she confessed to her mother that she wanted to quit. Deborah completely lost it. Sobbing, she said, "You can't quit, this was our chance." Watching her hysterical mother slamming it on the steering wheel like a petulant child, Jennette realized that there was only one thing she could do. She loudly rescinded her confession to appease her mother. Shockingly, Deborah's habit of guilt-tripping went even further. As her teen years approached, Jennette had a terrible fear of growing older. Her mother constantly reminded her that her childish looks would ensure more bookings, and that is not the most twisted part of this. In her memoir, she wrote about how her mother inspired this fear, saying, "She often weeps and holds me really tight, saying that she just wants me to stay small and young. I feel guilty with every inch I grow. And so I wanted to stay a child forever." Unfortunately, things only got worse when Jennette hit puberty. As she navigated the changes in her body, she felt uncomfortable and turned to her mother for advice on how to manage her feelings. Deborah had an unforgivable response. She told her about a special secret thing she could do to help her feel more at ease. Little did she know her mother's advice would destroy her life. The two of them embarked on a healthy journey together, embracing a mindful approach to their eating habits. Each evening, they would sit down to reflect on their day and plan their meals for the next. As the weeks went by, Jennette felt a sense of joy in her progress. Every Sunday, Deborah would bring out a measuring tape to check her thighs. followed by a step onto the scale. The results were clear. Jennette was experiencing a transformation. With her mother's encouragement, Jennette immersed herself in books, discovering the best choices to help her feel her best. As her commitment deepened, she found herself stepping onto the scale multiple times a day, becoming more aware of how different foods affected her. Soon, her favorite treats became light and refreshing options, like sugar-free popsicles, unsweetened iced tea, and applesauce. While she had certainly achieved her questionable goal, her body could only take so much. When she visited her doctor, her frail appearance raised all the red flags. Naturally, her doctor started to get suspicious and suggested the possibility of a disorder. He broached the sensitive subject with Deborah, who feigned ignorance and promised to keep her eye on Jennette, which is so twisted when you think about what was really going on behind the scenes. It all seems so wrong. Then, something shifted in 2007. Jennette had finally got her big break when she booked her first series, iCarly. And when her co-star Miranda Cosgrove waltzed onto set, she was like a breath of fresh air. To Jennette, she was unbelievably cool. Miranda, who played the lead character Carly, was very independent and was allowed to run errands on her own, something Jennette couldn't even begin to fathom. She also listened to music that Deborah would never approve of, like Gwen Stefani or Avril Lavigne. Jennette was fascinated by her new co-star, but Deborah was not happy. Her mother advised her to distance herself from Miranda, who had a penchant for swearing and using the Lord's name in vain. Even worse, Miranda didn't believe in God. Clearly, she was an awful influence in Deborah's eyes. But Jennette really wanted to be her friend. But as the days passed, she started to lose hope that any friendship would blossom between them. And then Miranda asked her a simple yet fateful question. On the final day of filming the iCarly pilot, Miranda asked Jennette if she had instant messenger. That night, Jennette signed up for an account, and from that moment onward, her friendship with Miranda started to flourish. They talked for hours every day, and it was easy for Jennette to hide their conversations from her mother. Of course, working at Nickelodeon, her mother wasn't the only distressing authority figure in her life. In her memoir, Jennette dove into her working relationship with a man she only referred to as the creator. But many people assumed that this character was the creator of iCarly, Dan Schneider. Jennette's memories of the creator paint a pretty disturbing picture. To begin with, she describes him as having two very different sides. She talked about him as being generous and over-the-top complimentary, while also being mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying. This was the kind of man that could make grown adults cry with his vicious insults. In fact, he reminded Jennette of her mother for a heart-wrenching reason. Whether she was around Deborah or the creator, Jennette always felt like she had to keep them happy and play by their rules. So during a lunch meeting with them, Jennette buried her true feelings in the face of a shocking announcement. The creator surprised her with a new opportunity. He planned to give her her very own show. Deborah was ecstatic, but Jennette felt a wave of panic washing over her. In her memoir, she wrote, "Part of me appreciates the creator. A part of me is scared of him, and the idea that I'll have to do everything he wants is intimidating to me." Assuming that the creator is indeed Dan Schneider, Jennette had every right to fear him, especially considering his treatment of her down the road. To her absolute dismay, Jennette's role as Sam Puckett in iCarly made her unbelievably famous. Like, really, really famous. After 3 years of filming the show, she couldn't go anywhere without being recognized by her fans. But that's not the only change that she despised. Puberty transformed her body whether she wanted it to or not. When she got her first period, she was horrified. Though her teacher congratulated her on becoming a woman, she felt completely ashamed of it, thinking, how did I let this happen? How did I become a woman? I don't know the answer, but I know the solution. I need to be a kid again. Unfortunately, there was another surprise in store for her, and yet again, she couldn't do anything to stop it. During the 2007 writer's strike, Jennette's show went on hiatus. But this didn't mean that she got to have a much-needed break. Oh no, her mother thought this was the perfect opportunity for her to start her music career. Soon she was acting, singing, and prepping for her very first tour. But shockingly, her mother would not be accompanying her. You see, Deborah and Jennette shared an email account, and that's how she saw an outgoing message that she was not supposed to see. Its contents confirmed Jennette's worst possible fear. Her mother's cancer had returned. And although she insisted on quitting the tour to be present during this trying time, Deborah was not having it. After all, she wanted Jennette to be a country music star. Jennette's Generation Love tour had her emotions all over the place. Playing in malls and performing on radio shows certainly wasn't her cup of tea, but the experience itself was new and exciting. Because Deborah wasn't there breathing down her neck, Jennette felt free for the first time, and it caused her to do something her mother would never approve of. Without anyone monitoring her, she started eating everything in sight. She hadn't felt full in so long, and consuming foods like burgers and fries became an act of rebellion. But this act also came with a generous dollop of guilt, because she understood just how disappointed her mother would be. As her consumption went up, so did Jennette's sense of impending doom. She couldn't bear the thought of seeing her mother again. And when she reunited with Deborah after the tour, she couldn't believe her eyes. Deborah looked terribly unwell. She was gaunt, bony, and hairless. But what Jennette truly dreaded was what she would say about her appearance, and she didn't have to wait long. Of course, she immediately commented on Jennette and said, "This is getting out of hand." And just like that, Jennette stepped back into the shadow of her mother's control. By the time she decided to get her own apartment, her mother had begun to use a wheelchair. It was a clear indicator that Deborah was never going to recover. But despite her sadness over her mother's condition, Jennette's excitement was undeniable. She couldn't wait to finally have her own space. But like everything else in her life, Deborah was out to shatter her daughter's dreams once again. On the day Jennette moved into her new apartment, her mother asked her to sleep over because she didn't have chemotherapy the next day. Jennette could not say no, but she also knew that saying yes was a huge mistake. In the book she wrote, "This is not my mum spending the night. This is mum spending every night for the foreseeable future. This is mum moving in." This arrangement, however, began to pose a serious problem for Jennette. In her memoir, she detailed her relationship with a co-worker that she called Joe, who was most likely Paul Glazer, a man she started dating around the time that her mother's cancer returned. But here's the thing. The very first time Joe started flirting with Jennette, he had a girlfriend, and that's not all. He was also in his 30s, while she was only 18. Still, Jennette found this romance to be exhilarating, and she also felt that she had to keep it a secret. In order to visit Joe without alerting her mother, she lied. She sneakily told her mother that she had sleepover plans with Miranda, while in reality she had every intention of staying the night with Joe. Deborah, however, was suspicious. So suspicious that she even whipped the TV remote at Jennette's head and screamed, "I'm gonna figure out what you're up to, you liar." Jennette managed to keep her mother in the dark for a full year, but when the truth finally came out, it was a horror show. While on vacation with Joe, a photographer snapped some photos of the two of them paddleboarding together. When Jennette saw the photographer, she entered a full panic mode. Her secret was out. The next morning, she looked at her phone. 37 missed calls from Deborah. In addition to these calls, Deborah also sent her some disturbing voicemails and emails. She'd seen the photos on TMZ and wanted to disown her daughter, saying, "What happened to my good little girl? Where did she go? And who is this monster that has replaced her? You're an ugly monster now." Oh, but this was not the worst email, not even close. Deborah's awful messages caused Jennette to spiral and hate herself more than ever. But the email that drove her mother's point home was the one that read, "You caused my cancer to come back. I hope you're happy knowing this. You have to live life with this fact. You gave me cancer." But the second that Jennette apologized and asked to meet up, Deborah slithered right back to her side. As volatile as she was, she didn't have much time left. While riding in the car with her, Jennette experienced a real-life nightmare. Her mother suddenly started convulsing in the seat next to her, and the situation took an even more terrifying turn when she started frothing at the mouth. Instructed by her grandfather to have her mother lie down, Jennette pulled her shaking mother onto her lap. After arriving at the hospital, she learned the sad truth. As it turned out, Deborah's brain tumor had caused her to have a seizure. It was truly the beginning of the end. But for Jennette, her dying mother wasn't the only thing in her life on its way out. Not only was iCarly ending, but her disappointing relationship with Joe had run its course. Although her mother managed to hang on for a little while longer, there was no escaping the inevitable. On September 20th, 2013, Jennette's mother passed away. But she still wielded great power over her, even in death. In an effort to honor her mother, she chose to continue the negative food principles that her mother taught her at a very early age. She also got hooked on drinking, which made her even more miserable. After iCarly wrapped, Jennette started filming what was supposed to be her own show, but it wasn't really. It turns out that the show was called Sam and Cat, and her co-star was none other than Ariana Grande. Ariana had everything that Jennette didn't. She came from a privileged upbringing, and her mother was healthy, and that's why Jennette's jealousy began to get the best of her. She couldn't help but compare her lackluster career to Ariana's. While Ariana was a promising pop star making every 30 under 30 list, Jennette was at a standstill. She wasn't getting the attention that Ariana was, not even close. Jennette felt stuck in teen Hollywood limbo. Her latest accomplishment? She'd become the face of a clothing line exclusively sold at Walmart. But that wasn't what sent her over the edge. In 2014, TMZ reported that Jennette was being paid less than Ariana on the Nickelodeon show, even though the two of them shared equal billing. Ariana denied the pay rumors on her Facebook page, saying, "I am not making more money than my co-star, nor do I think I should be. So can we all just move on and get out of our heads that this was a money thing, because I don't play like that at all. I am and have always been and will always be about equality and fairness." At the time, Jennette really started to resent her co-star even more, who she claims was given special treatment during their time on Sam and Cat. She said, "I'm pissed about it. I'm pissed at her, jealous of her. So now, every time she misses work, it feels like a personal attack." From that moment on, I didn't like her. I couldn't like her. Jennette also wrote about a time that Ariana was able to miss filming an episode because of conflicts with her budding singing career, which made her upset considering that she had never been allowed to miss a single day of shooting. There was also one time when Jennette was on set for Sam and Cat, ready to shoot an episode, when Ariana came humming happily late on set. Jennette asked her where she had been, and Ariana told her that she had been having dinner with Tom Hanks the night before. Jennette says she was fuming of jealousy. And life with Jennette's family only got worse too, especially when she found out their deepest, darkest secret. You see, Jennette's father, Mark, seemed to play a distant role in her life. He was often absent and disconnected from her, and maybe that was because he kept a jaw-dropping secret. He eventually confessed to Jennette that she and her brothers, Dustin and Scotty, were not his biological children. Instead, they were a product of one of Deborah's affairs. This left Jennette with one immediate question: who was her real dad? Eventually, she decided to track down her biological father. She discovered that he was a trombone player in a jazz band, and then she ambushed him at one of his shows. After locking eyes with him, she blurted out, "I think we have something in common." And that's when the man's eyes filled with tears. Her biological father confessed that he had lost the custody battle for his children after Deborah accused him of dangerous behavior. But even though they exchanged information, Jennette still felt disappointed in the fact that he had never attempted to reach out to her. What's more, her relationship with Mark, the man who raised her, never really bounced back. As she worked through therapy, she started to understand just how harmful her upbringing had been. Over the years, therapy has greatly helped Jennette move forward in life and provided her with the tools that she needs to cope with her past trauma. She also quit acting, which was a huge step for her because it allowed her to focus on what she had always wanted to do, write. And judging from the ripple effects after the release of her memoir, it's clear that she made the right decision in finally speaking out. If you love this video and want to see more like it, please be sure to like and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next one.